What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to every single one of y'all. We're back. We're back. And this is part two of our incredible conversation that we started last week. You say, we? Who is we? Well, I am Christopher Harris, and that is.
I am Jessica Canty.
And this is Callings and Careers. We are helping you with Christ-centered coaching, career conversations. And we want you to know that if you are a person of faith and you're working in professional environments, you do not have to turn your faith off or down in order to flourish and thrive in not just life, but also in your career. So we're bringing both of those worlds together, merging both of those worlds. And we're doing that unapologetically and with a lot of excitement. So Jessica, tell everybody really fast who you are. And we're going to jump into part two of last week's conversation. Really excited about it.
Hey there, I'm Jessica Canty. I am your life and career strategist. I have a passion for helping melanin millennial moms who want high achieving careers. And hey, you can't get the job without knowing how to interview. So this is going to be some juicy stuff. Grab your pen, grab your paper, and grab a pal because you definitely want to make sure you're tuning into this conversation.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really good. And I think really also really impactful. I'm Christopher Harris. I am the co-founder and CEO for diversechurchjobs.com, where we help people of color in ministry in particular find incredible career opportunities. And so I don't really call myself a career coach, but I guess I could sort of be helping coach people in their career. I don't know. I'm a little leery, Jessica, of titles because I think some people have, I don't think there's anything wrong with titles, but I think people have so abused them in some ways that it almost waters it down somehow. So I don't know. Maybe I got to just embrace and redeem it, right? Redeem the fact that I'm helping to coach people and how to thrive in their career and all that kind of good stuff. So Jessica and I have been hosting Callings and Careers here now for a little bit over a year. Wow. And you all can go back to our YouTube page, check out some previous episodes and conversations. And it's been so rich and so very powerful. We want you to help. We want to help you rather to discover your calling and develop in your career. And it's a truth that you just don't decide your calling. You got to discover it. And there's a process to that. And then you can't just assume that you're going to be proficient in your career just because you're in it. You got to put some intentionality with it. If we was in the church right now, I'd say, touch your neighbor and say intentionality. But since we're not, I will only allude to it. That's how we get down though, y'all. We have a good time with it. And last week, Jessica did such an amazing job at sort of laying a foundation for interviews that impact and for things that you need to know. Jessica, do you still have those handy that we can
Absolutely
review those really fast?
Absolutely. So last week, we really wanted you all to be prepared for your upcoming interview. And the very first thing that we said is that you have to know 4 things. So the first one is to know your tools. That's your resume, research the company, and know you need to practice. Yeah. The next thing you need to know is your brand. What are your skills? How can you package them? Have you done the brand management for your career? Are you being honest in those interviews? Third, you want to know your value. So long before you get to that interview table, you need to know what are your salary requirements so that can be a little less awkward when we talk about that taboo subject of money. And lastly, you want to know your follow-up. How are you going to go about sealing the deal? What have you done to prepare yourself, your environment, to make sure that this is going to be a mutual assessment process and both parties can feel confident about partnering together going forward?
Yeah, that's so good. I think you mentioned something. We didn't really unpack this a lot last week, but I think it's really important for us to kind of think about it a little bit more in terms of the interviewing, because this is one of the most awkward parts of the interview process. And that is the salary negotiation. And so many people fail at it for all kinds of various reasons. I have seen more often than not, Jessica, in my helping others, I've seen more often than not where people go too far in terms of what they're asking for based upon what they're bringing to the table. Do you watch Shark Tank, Jessica?
I've seen a couple episodes of it. I understand the concept behind it. Yes, sir.
So you're not a frequent.
I'm not an aficionado of Shark Tank. No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, I love Shark Tank. One of the things that happens pretty consistently on Shark Tank is when the business owner comes in to do their pitch, one of the first things that they say in the first sentence, they introduce the business, and then they'll say, "I'm asking for whatever, and I'll give away this percentage of the company." Right. So it is immediately showing the valuation, and immediately, right, when that valuation, the sharks have a reaction. Like it's instantaneous that they have a reaction. And when you see somebody, like, for example, if they're at the concept stage, meaning that they've put a concept together, they've done some fundraising, they've got the prototypes ready, but they've not yet sold one product. But then they're doing a valuation of like, $4 billion, something crazy. The sharks are like, this just don't even make sense. Like, you're so far off of valuation, like I can't even get engaged in the conversation. Now, why do I say that? Because I think the same thing happens in terms of how people value themselves. You may think you're the best thing since sliced bread, but if your resume doesn't suggest that you have proven skills, abilities, and I'm not just talking about, well, you took some classes, I'm talking about like real world life experience where you got stories to share, you got sort of, I don't want to be traumatic here, but you got war wounds from actually being in the work environment, being in the industry, and thriving in that. Proven experience is much more valuable than paper experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's interesting you should say that because the clinical term of magical thinking came to mind. It's okay for kids to have magical thinking, but you want to leave magical thinking outside of the salary conversation. And if you don't know how to present in a way that the salary matches that, definitely want to get the support. And we did a great episode on who needs to be in your support corner. Definitely go back and watch some of those episodes, but you really want to be sure that it's a no-brainer when you ask for that salary. That makes sense. You want to even give space for them to say, you know what, we can do this, we can do that even better. So it has to be a no-brainer that that salary makes sense for what you're bringing to the team.
Yeah. Excuse me. I saw someone that was applying to work at this publicly traded company. So there were, Google is our friend at times. So you can go online, you can check out the annual report for this company, see their spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. And what this person asked for in salary just did not, like, they were basically asking for like, 30% alone of the company's total bottom line. Like, there is no company on the planet that's going to give you 30% of their bottom line for your salary by itself. Like, that just doesn't even make sense. And then the person was like, well, they're trying to undersell me. They don't recognize my value. All right, well, go start your own company then and see how well you're going to get paid starting this thing on yourself. So it's just very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I got to look. Do we have a conversation lined up about salary negotiation? I can't remember because
I believe that we do. I know we've had some, and last year we talked a little bit about salary, and I know this year we were really excited about breaking down like what are the numbers, how to go about it. But yeah, I think we do have it lined up. So definitely, if we don't, we can rearrange a schedule to make sure that you all kind of list this in order. Make sure that you are preparing for the interview and that awkward, because for some reason money is a taboo subject. Everybody needs it to survive, but it's still a taboo subject. So we want to help you around your apprehensiveness and make sure there's no magical thinking in that shark tank of a salary boardroom.
Really fast, just tell everybody, like I get the magical thinking. I've heard that before from a theoretical perspective, but just break down for everybody really fast what that is, and then we're going to give those 10 ideas today to close out the interview conversation.
Yeah. So magical thinking are thoughts that are not based in reality, or they can sometimes be superstitious in nature, like thinking more grandiose of yourself, like that 30% of their bottom line budget. That what are magical thinking? When you're 8 years old, it's if I step on a crack, I'll break my mom's back, or I have an imaginary friend. And as a clinician, I'm not going to diagnose you with anything. However, if that 8 is times a couple of other numbers, and you're in a space in your career where you're asking for something something that's outlandish, you have to go back and see what makes me valuable to get that salary price point. And a lot of that means you have to invest in yourself. So it's really a return on investment. It should be when you're asking for that salary conversation, the years of education, the years of experience, the years of exposure, and the way that you can build that brand. So it should be more of a return on investment. If you haven't even invested that 30%, don't expect the company to invest it either.
That's so good. That's so good. So good. You can almost ask yourself the question, what problems have I solved already? What problems have I solved already? And how big of a deal are those problems? Because if you haven't really solved big problems, you can't really demand a big salary, right? That's just...
For somebody that's hesitating to call themselves a career coach, you're giving a lot of career coach type questions. Absolutely. Go ahead. We'll talk about offline. Well, you're operating in your career coach gifts right now.
Let me just say, y'all, okay, Jessica and I are we're like family now. We've been doing this long enough. We like family. That was her way of rebuking me, y'all. Like, I've been around her long enough to know now. Like, that was her way of sliding in, just like a real subtle rebuke. Listen, I'll take it.
Okay.
I can't. There's nothing I can say about it. So let's jump into it. So on the backdrop of Jessica sharing, know your tools, know your brand, know your value, and know how to follow up, we want to continue on with this discussion around interviewing, because here at the end of the day, and we shared with you last week also all the different kinds of interviews that you will have. Essentially, this is you presenting yourself to others to convince them of why they should say yes to investing in you. Because make no mistake about it, no company hires you and there's not a cost or a risk involved for them. Yes, there's a risk involved for you as well, but you have to sell yourself to them. And yes, you need to be interviewing them and finding out who they are and all of that. But at the end of the day, we want you to know how best do you present yourself. And Jessica, I was thinking about this today, earlier this morning, and just thinking about this whole interviewing conversation. And those of you that are watching this or may listen to this later, if you're a fan of the Cosby Show growing up, you may remember this episode of this guy by the name of Dabney Bricky. Do you remember Dabney, Jessica?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So Dabney was Vanessa's fiance, and Cliff and Claire had just met him like out the blue, hadn't heard anything about him, didn't know anything about him. And Vanessa walks in and is like, "Hey, this is Dabney. This is my fiance." And initially, they got cold feet towards Dabney because they're like, "Bro, we don't know you. Like, you talking about you get ready to marry our daughter." And in the episode, he's like playing this much older man as well. So that was another thing, right? Like, Vanessa's in college, she's trying to get her life together, and now this is older man. We don't know who he is. We don't know anything about him. So there's this classic segment of that show where Dabney like tries to defend himself. He's like, "Listen, I don't know why you don't like me. I've got this going for myself. I've got that going for myself." And Claire is like, "It's not that I don't like you. I don't know you. Like, you get ready to try to marry my daughter and we don't know you." So then Cliff is like, "Okay, Dabney, how you like your steak?" Dabney is like, "Oh, I like it. Not Dabney. I may be paraphrasing a little bit of this here, not get it verbatim. I like it medium rare." He's like, "Okay, you like it medium rare. What do you like on top of it?" He's like, "I like mushrooms and I like onions and pepper." And he talks about all that. And what kind of sauce you like on? "I like this kind of sauce." Da, da, da. He says, "Okay, so imagine if I prepare your steak just like you like it, and it's a good steak, got the right amount of ounces, the right vegetables on it, the right seasoning on it, and then I present that to you on a trash can top." He said, "Do you still want it?" He said, "No, I don't want it." He said, because presentation matters." I thought about that episode this morning.
How timely. Yeah, how poignant for this. Yeah, it is. Presentation is everything.
Yeah. So we want to give you today just kind of 10 quick things to reflect on or think about. Some of this may have some overlap to a little bit of what Jessica shared with us last week and what she reviewed earlier in this episode. So, and these are maybe not in necessarily a particular order, but some very, very practical things where we've seen people not pay attention to this that can impact your interview. So here's the first thing. And this is some of this is going to seem like very, very common sense, and that's okay. These are interview hacks that we want to make sure you're prepared for. So here's the first thing. Research the company. Just like if you are interviewing for an organization, you should go on Google and literally type in that organization's name. If there's a CEO, if there's a board, if there's a vice president that you're interviewing with, the names of the people you're interviewing with, you should Google these people. LinkedIn, if you should have a LinkedIn profile page. Like, I don't care what industry you're in, trust me, there are other people that are in your space on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is not what, Twitter, not what Facebook, not what Instagram, not what TikTok is. It is a professional platform for your career. So the kinds of content that you put on LinkedIn is very different. My point is, you should not be walking in an interview and, for example, a company that has a very robust community development or community outreach oriented department, and then you're in the interview saying, well, can you tell me whether or not you guys impact the community or not? Well, you just proved to the people that you didn't even take the time to research them and find out about them. So first thing is, we want to tell you very practically, Google the people. Google them and find out about them. Anything you want to add to that, Jessica?
Absolutely, because when you research, you're able to then tell them what they could be doing even more in that particular effort. So we were talking about the community outreach. I saw that you were doing this community outreach, and I was wondering, have you considered A, B, and C about that? Or I was really excited to see this community outreach because I really would love to be able to work on this element of the project. So it's not only showing them that, in fact, what you're talking about, something about their company, but you're, again, selling yourself, and that's a part of the value too. So even if they don't ask you, what do you know about our company? It can be worked into the conversation by saying, how's this project going? I saw this. I was been watching it. It sounds like it's pretty interesting. So you can even work that research into the interview.
Yeah, one of the most impressive things I saw one time was this person said in an interview, I noticed that you all put your fundraising efforts on one platform but not another, and I'd be curious to know what your thought process around that. Because now what that said to me was, not only did you look us up, but you looked us up on multiple platforms and had the wherewithal to recognize, okay, here's how I can help solve a problem. So immediately that question says, I'm bringing value to y'all. That's going to be remembered.
Absolutely.
So number one, today we're just kind of giving you some interview hacks. Research the company, research the people. All right, here's the next one. The next one is rehearse. Practice, y'all. You got to rehearse and you got to practice. So if you don't know already, some common questions that that company is going to ask, or certain words, key phrases that are in your industry, that's a problem. You need to already know. So like if you're like Jessica's in counseling, I don't know, Jessica, give me like 3 or 4 phrases that everybody in counseling should know.
You should know diagnosis, you should know prognosis, you should know what the treatment plan is.
All right. So if I'm coming into interviewing for a career, for a counseling job, and they start saying to me things like, what do you think the prognosis of this, and this should be as a case study? And I'm like, oh, well, what's the prognosis? This interview is over.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, like this is a wrap already. Like, they're going to be kind and gracious, but I promise you, everybody that's on the other end of that table has already checked out. You go on an interview to be an auto mechanic, and you're like, now can y'all remind me of what a carburetor is? Have a good day.
We'll validate your parking now. You have a good one.
Basically, yeah. Did you park in the parking garage or the street? Yeah, anything you want to add to that? So rehearse, practice words, practice your responses to things. Sometimes it's good for you to type out an answer.
Right.
to certain questions so that you can be succinct and concise in your response. Because the other thing is, you don't want to freestyle certain answers and get too long in your
Absolutely.
response. So
Absolutely.
go ahead, Jessica.
Yes, I definitely encourage you to rehearse and practice and make sure you're rehearsing and practicing with your career executive board as well, because sometimes we can rehearse and practice things and it sounds right in our mind, but then when it comes across our lips and those who are experts in the field here, they can make sure that we tailor it to what the interviewer is actually asking, because sometimes people are answering the surface level question and not hearing the underlying question that the interviewer is trying to get to. So when you're rehearsing and practicing, I highly encourage you to get that career executive board together and ask them to practice with you. If you don't have one, you want to go back and listen to our episode about your career executive board. That's your, the team that's going to help you with it. And also make sure you're practicing with someone who's not just going to be a yes person. If you were one of my queens in front of me and I was training you, I, tell you go over practicing how you stand, how you sit, how you're answering the question, and, giving yourself some of those fillers that indicate that you're thinking, not that you don't know the answer. So not the versus, thank you for that question. Yeah, as I'm considering all the possibilities to how to approach that solution, I think because when you're going scratching your head, it doesn't give the impression that you are thinking about an intelligent response. So definitely want to even practice those fillers, practice your face when you receive the question, because a lot of times the interviewer is reading your body language as well.
Yeah, I think the other thing about that too, Jessica, and that's so good. That's such good wisdom you provided. I think sometimes when we even when we type our responses or write our responses out, or have a coach or somebody that's helping to help us to navigate this interviewing process, give them permission to ask hard questions or responses to what we say, because sometimes how we may answer may trigger it may trigger a curiosity or trigger something that may open the door that you don't want to open. You may not want to go down that road. If you had bad experiences with a previous boss and you like on the sly sort of reference that in a response, now you may open up that door, and now the entire interview, you're going to spend the next 30 minutes trying to explain, why you and the boss had a falling out. Because now if I'm interviewing you and you said that, I want to know how you're going to respond when you and I disagree. That's so good. All right. So the first thing is research the company, research the people. The second thing is you need to rehearse, you need to practice. Here is the next thing. Here's the next thing. Please have the right attire. Okay. I know that we're in a much more casual environment, business casual environment, but interviews is not the time for you to try to make a statement. Interviews is not the time for you to try to, establish your creativity, unless, of course, you're in that kind of space. If you're in a space where, uniqueness and creativity, like in the arts or things of that nature, is really important, then that makes sense. But if you're going into a corporate environment or you're going into an office environment, that may not be the time for you to wear your lime green suit, okay, or your pastel purple. It's just not the time. You don't want your clothes to speak for you, in the sense that it's being loud and your clothes have a megaphone. You want your clothes to be subtle. And I think one of the real hidden hacks with interviewing around this is how you smell. You don't want to have such a strong, overpowering smell when you walk in that is consuming more than what you're saying and what you're presenting. So I think being conservative, colors matter. So your blacks, your grays, your tans, your browns, all of those things matter. And we were having this discussion, Jessica, my wife and I were having this discussion with the young lady that my wife is mentoring, and she was preparing for an interview and was going to wear certain colors. And without me even being involved in the conversation, my wife said, now, because of your personality, if you wear that color, that's going to come across as too strong. So you may want to wear this color that kind of tones it down some. And it was interesting to see that interaction. And I would say to the men, and I'll let you just kind of offer some wisdom for the ladies here in a minute. I would say to the men, just make sure that you try the suit on before the morning of. You don't want it to be too tight. You don't want to be uncomfortable. You want to be very, very comfortable. If you sweat a lot, wear a t-shirt so that your clothes don't get wet and then it's see-through, or your shirt is see-through, and things of that nature. If you sweat pretty hard, get you a handkerchief. Take a handkerchief with you, and make sure that all of those things are together. And finally, I would say, even in regards to attire, take as much as you can out of your pockets, and put those things in your bag, so you're not sitting there with bulging pockets and it's uncomfortable and all of that. To me, all of that plays into attire. And then finally, I'll say, please wipe your shoes off, clean your shoes, because your shoes make a statement. So, Jessica, what would you add to that, or what would you adjust to that, or what wisdom would you offer to the ladies?
I would kind of be a combination between the last one and this one, rehearsing your outfit too. Rehearsing your outfit. So try on the outfit, see how, because a lot of times we'll try on an outfit and it may have been easy to maneuver in one instance, but it may be different in an interview. So if an interview, they may have you do a skill test where you're standing up and presenting to a group. You may be sitting down for longer periods of time. So rehearsing the outfit too, see how it moves as you're moving. If you have to walk across a long parking lot to get to the interview site, that may not, some dresses are sitting pretty dresses. Some shoes are sitting pretty shoes that look real nice when you're sitting still, but not when you are in a high pressured environment. So I'm such a fan of planning. My family often makes fun of me because I carry a large handbag, but I promise you, I got an extra pair of stockings. I have a scarf in case I spilled some coffee on myself on the way to the interview.
You still wear stockings?
Oh, absolutely. That's a paramount. Absolutely.
Wow. I think you just lost half the audience, Jessica.
Listen, between being university queen and going to church, it just gives a polished look. So perhaps I'm showing my age, but I'm telling you, especially for those that are younger, please hear me out. They can see you coming. They can see your age coming. And so the most you can look like you're polished, the more streamlined that salary conversation is going to be. You think you think it's just stockings and it's old fuddy-duddy and things like that. But what they see is, here's a young person coming. I can lowball them. I can lowball salary them, give them a lowball salary offer because they don't have any experience. So absolutely, extra pair of stockings, a scarf to accessorize in case I accidentally spill, because I'm kind of, a little nervous when it comes to meeting people for the first time. I know those things around myself. So have that toolkit ready. And available. And again, your executive board can kind of tell you what that toolkit looks like. And your wife is right on the money. It's science that talks about color theory and how people respond to color theory. Maybe assumptions, maybe bias and blind spots, but people do act in bias and blind spots. So colors can dictate how they respond to you.
So good. That's so good. That's so good. I wasn't anticipating you were going to talk about the stockings, but man, listen, that's something serious. This is maybe a little uncomfortable to talk about, but I think it's necessary in this conversation. And you made me think about this when you started talking about, you may have to walk across the parking lot or make sure you got the right shoes on, all those things. Jessica, I will never, ever forget being in this interview that we actually had to cut short because this young lady didn't realize that she was going to be sitting across the room from us being interviewed. It was like a panel interview. So it was like, I think it was 7 of us at a table facing the interviewer. And she was in a skirt that was not appropriate, sitting down facing us. And it got to the point that she got to be so uncomfortable that finally one of the ladies in the room said, hey guys, let's just take a 10-minute break. And she took the young lady out. And I don't know exactly what she did or how she navigated it, but she came back in and, she adjusted how she was sitting and, all those kinds of things. And I'm just like, that like if she had the chance to sit down and talk to somebody or, a coach or somebody beforehand, that could have been something that could have been very much avoided and not been so uncomfortable. So then you got a situation where the guys are trying to be respectful and they're trying not to make eye contact at her or with her, but still trying to make eye contact, right? Yeah. And even for me, I was trying to be like very gracious, and I'm looking at her, but I'm looking up, and I'm trying to, the whole interview was just awkward. It was very awkward.
It can be incredibly uncomfortable. Again, like it may have worked in another environment. Like, if she was sitting in a different type of chair, different type of arrangement, it may have worked. Of course, you always want to do your fingertip test. And the fingertip test is, making sure that your hand can go and get your skirt, at least meet your fingertips when you're sitting.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah. And the other thing is the height of your heel. The height of the heel can make it look like it's shorter than what it actually is. And if you're a woman of color, we typically have more curvy bodies. So you do have to be very mindful of how that comes across. So of course, in church, I say throw a lap scarf on, and it hides a lot, and it really helps to make sure that everyone is focused on the Lord and not necessarily what's underneath that lap scarf. But that's why I said rehearse it, because again, sometimes you don't know what's going to go into it, especially even when you're standing up to present. You don't want to gap your legs too much, things of that nature. So rehearse with it and have those additional eyes to be able to look over it.
Final thing I'll just mention really fast that has also been a hack that I've noticed with regards to attire. Please, if you have, and this is for the men and the women, if you have pants on, make sure that your pants are buttoned and zipped before you walk in the door. That's very, very important. Mm-hmm. All right. We're giving y'all practical stuff today. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give you practical stuff. So these are all interview hacks that we're trying to help you to make sure that you're thinking through these things as you prepare for your interview. So number one, we want you to research the company, research the people. Number two, you need to practice and you need to rehearse. You need to practice and you need to rehearse. Number three, we just talked about the right attire. I'm going to skip for just a moment and go to this next one really fast, just because I think this maybe falls in line with a little bit of what we just said. And that is check your face, like legitimately, stop by the bathroom, use the restroom, but then make sure you're taking a moment and you're looking in the mirror. You're checking for the corner of your eyes. You're checking, ladies that have hair, or even men, you got hair, checking your hair, making sure that there's nothing in your teeth, those kinds of things. We talked about the mints earlier or what have you. I would say avoid gum because that would be a distraction. And sometimes when you get nervous or the anxiety is a little bit higher, you don't realize that you're making noise with the gum or, it's chewing a little bit faster or harder and louder and that kind of thing. But check your face, check your nose, making sure you're checking your nose, your ears, that kind of thing, to make sure that you're presentable and that there's nothing that's a distraction. So Jessica, anything you want to say on that point?
Absolutely. Check your face, check it and check it again. Because, from the restroom to wherever you went, you just never know. Our bodies can do silly things. So double check it. And ladies, if you are going for makeup, you want to go for a more neutral face for the same reason why we talked about your outfit, because you want your skills to speak for you. And unless you're interviewing for a cosmetology appointment or, a makeup appointment, that's not the time to beat your face, as the children say. It's the time to go a little more neutral with your makeup, because especially because you don't want to be, if you're sweating and things like that, then your makeup is running down your face, things of that nature.
Yeah. Can we just take a quick minute to talk about these eyelashes and the what do they call it now?
The baby hair.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what they used to call it when I was younger. It was the baby hair. But yeah, now it's almost like bangs that now they're like drapery coming down. So it's like, here's the drapery and then here's the fan. It's a lot going on in between here and here. Listen, I love a good lash. I love a good lash extension because I've not been gifted with long lashes, but it's to the point where people's eyes are irritated because it's so heavy and it's not healthy. It's not safe. Just stop. It's too much.
Jessica, you said drapery.
That's what it is. You see, and listen, it's creative. I'm a Black woman, and so I'm here for it. I'm here for all the creativity that we do with our hair. People try to, copy and steal from us. Not on interview day, sis. Not on interview day. Have fun with on Saturday, not on interview day.
I'm trying to recover, but you said,
you see how we cut up, y'all. We cut up.
You said drapery.
That's hard. I don't even know how else to explain it.
That's why it's so funny, because I'm looking at my grandmama's drapery, and that's what it looks like.
That's exactly what it looked like, right? Right. Now when you see it, you're gonna laugh. Now when you go out and see people, you're like, what is the drapery?
Oh my God.
Don't say
Oh
it
my
out
goodness. I have never heard that before, but it fits perfectly.
loud.
Oh my God. I heard somebody the other week said people walking around with these flamingos on their face, and I lost it.
Because that's exactly what it is. Oh, that's a good description. That's a good description.
So we got flamingos on their face and drapery on their edges.
It's too much for an interview. Way too much.
Listen, if y'all can't laugh like this, y'all on the wrong podcast. Like this, this is real. This is real life, people. We're trying to help y'all out. We're telling you why you didn't get the job. You got drapery on your forehead.
They're not going to say it. They're going to say they found another qualified candidate, or they're not going to put on your email. But we're trying to tell you what they're not going to say.
Yeah, we probably need to back up to the attire thing because we didn't talk about, Jessica. We didn't talk about jewelry. We didn't talk about jewelry being a distraction. Like if you got a ring on every finger, bracelets that make a lot of noise, big earrings that are distracting, big what are the ladies called those big jewelry pieces that like
necklaces,
like the Mr. T from 18.
They're called statement necklaces.
Well, the statement is too loud.
No, Mr. T. No. So I typically teach when I'm training the queens, I say the rule of 5. So just go with the rule of 5. No more than 5 pieces of jewelry. Or 5 accessories. So I count earrings as one now, but if you have multiple earrings in, that's now adding to the 5. So if like right now I have a headband on, that's going to be 1. So my headband, my earrings, and my watch, I'm at 3. I can go with a bracelet. I can go with the necklace. However, I'm not going to go past 5 accessories. Because the other thing is you don't want it to get snagged on your clothing. You don't want it to be, anything, like I said, it could be a great conversation piece, but you also don't want it to give the impression that you're trying to get something from the company to maintain your lifestyle. So you can save your, all your bling bling and all that good stuff. It's going to be misread in that environment. So don't go past 5.
That's so good. That's so good. This is not a point that we prepared, but you just said something that I was listening to an interview coach maybe about 3 months ago, and they spent some time talking about interviewing mistakes that they've seen people make. And this was an entry-level job. And this person, they saw the person come in, they were in a very, an exotic car, that, personalized tag and all of that. They came in, everything name brand, with name brand bag. And there was some concern, not a judgment, but some concern to say like, and this is one of those situations where the person walked in the door and maybe the second question that they asked them was about salary and that kind of thing. And so it sent the wrong message. And the person said, the coach said, one of the things that could have easily just totally disarmed all of that was maybe this person should have taken an Uber, to the interview. And then secondly, you don't have to try to make a statement about your name brand clothing. You've got name brand shoes, name brand belt, name brand tie, you got a Rolex watch on, and then you got a name brand bag. Well, that's fine if that's your normal cup of tea, but that's not you're in an interview, not trying to make that kind of statement.
Right.
Yeah. So that was powerful based on what you just said. Okay, so we've made some people uncomfortable. Let's go to a very, very simple and straightforward. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this one. And that is this, y'all. Just be early. Be early. If your interview is at 1:00, you should not be walking in the door at 12:57. You just should not be. You should leave enough room for yourself that you're at least sitting down in front of the room or in front of the building 20 minutes, 30 minutes even, before the interview is scheduled, because you can't account for traffic always. You can't account for mishaps, all those things. And so give yourself that leeway. And particularly for those of you that are listening and watching this, if you know that you're a procrastinator, you know that you're not great with time, give yourself even more time. I would rather you be sitting in front of the building for an hour than to get there late. Or and when I say late, I'm saying 5 minutes before the interview starts is late, because now you're rattled, you're not settled, your heart is beating fast. Now you're going to be sweating, perspiring a little bit. Your mind is all over the place. You're apologizing at an interview for being late, et cetera, et cetera. And I think one of the important parts of this too, now, most people understand emergencies. So as you're preparing for this interview, one of the things that you need to ask is, they tell you the time and the place to be there, confirm the address where you're supposed to be, confirm if there's somebody you need to speak with when you get there, what is the procedure? And then number 3, get a phone number. Get a phone number so that if there is an emergency, you know who to reach out to. But this showing up on time and almost late, we just got to cut that out for interviews because it just sends the wrong message. So Jessica, anything on that?
And that goes for virtual as well. We talked about that in our last episode about interviews as well. So be early for that too. So that means, just a recap of it, charge your phone, make sure your internet is not shaky, make sure you're in a non-distracting background environment. So even for a virtual spaces, be early as well.
Absolutely. I tell people, Jessica, when you've got a virtual interview, dress like it's an in-person interview, because you're going to respond very differently. You should not be like, well, I'm just going to wear something professional from the waist up, and then I'm good, with some biker shorts or, yoga pants or something like that, from waist down. And you can tell the distinction and the difference. And here's the other thing. You never know if you might have to stand up or move around in that interview. Now your cover is blown and you're just in trouble. So definitely be early. Confirm the link. Confirm. So if it's a Zoom call or if it's a Skype interview or if it's a Teams interview, is it Google Meetup? Not Google Meetup. Is it Google Meetup?
I know it's Google something. If it's Google, not like Google Chat. I don't know if that's the right one. Google Conference or something like that.
Yeah. Whatever the link is, just confirm it. Confirm it to make sure that you have the right information. And part of the way that you can confirm it, even the day before, 24 hours before, interview the person you've been in contact with and said, hey, this is the information that I have for tomorrow. Just wanted to confirm this is still on. Here's the time. Here's the location, or here's the link that I have. Do you mind just confirming this for me? I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Keep it positive and that kind of thing. So I think that's really, really important. All right. So we've talked about researching the company and the people. We've talked about rehearsing and practicing the interview questions, things about your industry, things of that nature. We've talked about having the right attire, and we've covered everything from jewelry to hair, makeup, all those kinds of things. We've talked about checking your face in the actual mirror, making sure that you're pausing to confirm those things. Talked about time, being early, not being late. This is a little bit of a different one, but this is another interview hack, and that is be prepared to consider and talk about and explain any career gaps that you have in your career on your resume. If there's a 2-year gap on your resume, that's going to be seen. Anybody that looks at resumes consistently that'll be one of the first things that stands out. Oh, so what happened between 2002 and 2004? And you're not prepared, or you're stumbling over that. That's not going to be positive. Or, if you've been out of the industry, I see this a lot, Jessica, with mothers who decided to become stay-at-home moms for a season. And there's like a 7 or 8 year gap in between their last role professionally outside of the home, and then they're coming back into the career space outside of the home. And then they've stumbled over that because they're, whatever reason, have some shame or hesitation of how people may view, working from home. No, it's an admirable thing if you were able and had the flexibility and the resources to stay at home to support your family in that way. If you chose to do that, we see a lot more men doing that now as well. So I think it's just important for us to be prepared to talk about those career gaps.
Most definitely. And you should consider that even when you're writing your resume, if you do have career gaps, I would suggest moving away from the chronological resume and then more into a combination resume, because
Mm,
that highlights your skills, not the amount of time that you've been at a particular company. And then I want you to think about the ways that your skills, that you were committed to making sure your skills were not atrophied. There was no skill atrophy taking place. So even as a stay-at-home mom, were you volunteering? Did you coordinate something for your children's school? Were you a part of the ministry? Were you a ministry head? In what ways were your skills still staying active? Were you managing the family's budget? Were you managing the family's social calendar? And so market yourself in that way. So when we're talking about knowing your tools and knowing your skill set, make sure that you know how to convey that with innovative language that's going to tell the interviewer that when you hire me, regardless of how many years I had in a career gap, it's going to be an asset to you. You're going to make money, save money, or be connected to expansion opportunities. So that's how I would market if I have any career gaps in that way. Don't downplay your volunteer work. Don't downplay the work that you didn't get paid for.
yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Especially if you got very practical experience that's relevant to that job. My goodness,
Mm-hmm.
man, please don't discredit that,
Mm-hmm.
because again, proven experience is never at the mercy of paper experience, and so that's really, really
Mm-hmm.
important. So the gaps, right? Make sure you acknowledge that, and make sure that you put weight on those experiences. But I think this leads to the next point. You want to be honest. Now, don't lie,
Mm-hmm.
don't exaggerate. You want to make yourself sound good and present yourself on paper well, present yourself in person well. But the world is too small. Our industries are much more well connected now, especially with social media. I was helping this church walk through this interview process with this company, and they ended up, one of the hiring managers, there was a team of 3 people. One of the hiring managers, Jessica, ended up going online, seeing the person on Facebook, realizing that there were several friends that they had in common, reached out to one of those friends to find out about this person, and got a completely different view than what this person presented. And when you're not honest, now that's your name and your credibility and your integrity. And if there is a doubt in there, or room to wiggle room in there in terms of your integrity, especially if there's another candidate that is just as good as you, oftentimes that interviewing committee or that hiring person is not going to take that next step for you to try to justify your character when you had the opportunity to do that in the very, very beginning. So talk a little bit about that honesty there for a moment.
It's your career credit score. So just think about it that way.
Ooh,
When you think
ooh,
about your credit, we know how much our credit impacts our ability to create generational wealth, to be able to get financial assistance. It's the same thing. So that's what they're checking for. And honestly, like even a lot of companies are literally checking your credit report to see if they're going to hire you because they're checking for your character. So we're not just talking about, yes, we want you to have a life outside of the interview. Yes, we want you to enjoy your life. We're just saying if your life is not in alignment with that company, don't try to stuff yourself into it. Don't try to be dishonest because then that's a character trait as well. Choose a different career path. Choose a different way to share your skills. Just consider it to be your career credit score, and it's largely based on your character.
good. That's good. Do you have any stories, Jessica, of anybody that was not credible?
Do I? I often when I taught in my alma mater, I would tell people to pull up their social media in the middle of class and start
Mm.
talking about it after I interviewed them. And I was like, "Oh, you told me you were a team player. Does that mean that you were drinking on the weekend with a team of people? Like you gotta line it up because a team player means that you're not going to be drinking on the weekend when you got to present a project on Monday. So in those ways, if you all were my student leaders that I was supporting then, I'd say make sure you're double checking that as well. So yeah.
Y'all, Jessica's in rare form today. I'm just telling y'all that. She is in rare form today. She throwing shade left and right. She rebuking people, correcting. She corrected me, y'all. I'm telling y'all, she is in rare form today. I am still stuck on these grapes on people's forehead. That will go down in history as one of the greatest statements ever in the history of callings and careers. I promise you that. It's going to go down in history.
That's going to be like on our highlight reel.
It absolutely will. All right. So we're going to practice what we preach. We have 3 more to give you. We're going to practice what we preach on this last one. Oh, excuse me, on this next one. This next one is, as you're giving answers, be concise. Now, being concise means giving a lot of information in very few words. So in some ways, think through what you need to say, what you're trying to say. And it's okay during the interview. You don't get points for answering fast. You get points for answering accurately and effectively. So learn to be concise. Anything, Jessica?
Colleague told me to kiss the answer. So keep it simple. You want to keep it simple, silly. So don't do anything silly. So that's what he said. Keep it simple, silly.
You had a nice colleague, because my mentor told me like 15, 20 years ago, the KISS method was keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah. Don't be silly with it. It was kinder. Yeah.
I like your mentor better. All right. So we're walking through these, y'all. We've talked through researching the company and the people. We've talked through rehearsing and practicing to make sure that you're prepared. We've talked through the right attire, jewelry, makeup, colognes, perfumes, all of those things. We've talked about checking your face before you walk into the room, that kind of thing. We've talked about being early, that it's important for you to be early, be conscious of your time, consider your career gaps that are on your resume, and those kinds of things, being honest, what that looks like. Talked about being concise, and we got 2 more that we're going to give you. This one is a little bit more technical. Some people may not be as familiar with the STAR method. And so be prepared to be asked at times about specific skills. And when that takes place, I'm just going to explain it to you what the STAR method really fast is, and then Jessica can maybe expound on it. But STAR, that acronym STAR, stands for situation, task, action, and result. Situation, task, action, and result. So be prepared to state a very clear situation that you were in, the task that you took to get that done, or the task that you outlined to accomplish what you were trying to accomplish, the actions of yourself and the team, and then the results that you got. And so you package that very succinctly, very concisely, and then you give the interviewers some handles to handle your response. So Jessica, what would you expound on with that, or explain further that I may not have made clear?
Yeah, exactly. I think the STAR method is really, really beneficial when you're answering tough questions, or sort of like that career gap. What was the situation? What were the tasks you were completing? What was the ultimate result of you being away from the career field for a while, or a while? Or when they ask you, did you ever have a moment where you disagree with the boss? That's when you really want to break down the STAR method. So you don't go down that path like you were mentioning earlier, where you're opening up for things of that nature. Just stick with that STAR method. Here's the situation. Here's what I was tasked with doing. Here are the action steps I took, and ultimately, here's the results that took place. So, especially with those questions that are designed to see what your character are, stick with that STAR method.
That's good. So good. And I'm gonna let you handle the last one here, Jessica.
I absolutely love sending a thank you note. I think it's even more personalized in this digital age to write out a personal note. If in fact it wasn't something that's done virtual, like if you're interviewing for a position across the country, feel free to send a personal email. Even now, people are really getting creative, especially if you're in the content creation space, creating a video. Thank you for the opportunity. Just wanted to tell you, here's the 3 major things that I can do for your company, and love to be able to hear your follow-up. So the thank you note is really that last thing about knowing how to seal the deal. As we spoke, here are the 3 things I'd love to be able to bring to your company. Please let me know what the next steps will be to follow up. Thanking them for their time, and reminding them about why you're the only qualified candidate they should consider.
Yeah. And I found, Jessica, that a lot of people assume that the thank you note doesn't matter. But I can promise you that if there's 4 candidates that interviewed with us and only 1 responds back with a thank you note, that's going to stand out, especially if the interview was good. I think the second thing is many people really, really don't assume the significance of getting a card in the mail in a professional context that says thank you for your time. So I want to very, very practical. I want to tell everybody about this this app that I've used that I think is very, very significant around this point. It's called Felt Cards, Felt. And you can actually, so it has you to go in and use your handwriting, signature, things of that nature, all of that. But for those of you that don't get by the post office often, or it's, all of those things, felt cards, you can, identify the card that you want to send, a picture if you want to put on it, a note that you want to have written inside the card. It's got your signature. They will actually mail the card for you. You put the address in, they'll actually mail the card for you. So they make it really easy. In 5 minutes, you can have a card mailed and it's done and you move on to the next thing. So felt cards. If you just look that up on whatever platform you're on, then you'll be able to see that. So we've walked through it today for you. We've given you some hacks, some things to consider as you look to make your interviews have an impact. So we've talked about researching the company and the people, rehearsing and practicing, having the right attire, check your face. We talked about being early. We talked about considering your career gaps. We talked about being honest and walking in integrity with all of your answers, even the information that you present. Be concise, using the STAR method, and then finally sending a thank you note. So these are all hacks that we think will help take your interviews to the next level and make you stand out in the crowd as you present yourself in a just a professional way. So Jessica, anything you think we might have missed or anything else you want to add to what we've shared today?
Send your thank you note within 72 hours of the interview. You want to stay fresh in the interviewer's mind. But other than that, listen, take each of these, and I'm telling you, you'll be a stellar candidate. You can even, if you don't get the position, you may want to, if the interviewer is open to it, asking them what led to them choosing another candidate, because they may be able to get you in the company in a different space for just a good feedback for you and your interviewing skills.
Yeah. So this has been us just kind of giving you some very practical hacks. This is part 2 of a 2-part conversation. Part 1 was last week. You can go back and watch us on whatever platform you're on now. We're on those same platforms last week, where Jessica kind of laid out 4 very basic approaches. We also talked about the different kind of interviews that you need to prepare for, can prepare for in your different spaces and in your different contexts. Our goal is to help you discover your calling and developing your career. That's why we're called Callings and Careers. And we're committed. We're committed to providing you quality content and value added so that you can grow in this and all of that. Jessica, do you do interview coaching as well within your career coaching process?
Absolutely. That's a part of the package when we support our candidates or our clients in becoming qualified candidates. We go over how best to present themselves in interviews.
So if you're looking for a career coach, looking for somebody to help you kind of elevate and go to the next level on this, Jessica is a perfect coach to help you walk through that. And if you're watching this and you are in ministry or you know somebody that's in ministry, that's sort of my niche in particular. So we're happy to help you navigate that. And I'll just say very quickly as we talk about interviews today, particularly for those of you that are in ministry, many people, Jessica, are blindsided by ministry interviews, because in the church space, we can ask questions that corporate cannot always ask. Mm-hmm. So because you're bringing your full self to the ministry world, we can ask you about marriage. We can ask you about your kids, your faith beliefs, those kinds of things. And also you need to be prepared. Certain jobs, corporate or ministry, or even nonprofit, they have the wherewithal to ask you or to even do credit background checks, to do criminal background checks, and you need to be prepared to answer some of the questions that may be related to that, especially if you're in finances or financial space. They can ask you those questions about your finances, your credit score, all of that. So any closing comments or remarks, Jessica, for today?
You can do it. You can do it. You'll get the job. I believe in you. We believe in you. Go and walk in your calling.
There you go. So we're here. We'll be back next month with our next episode of Callings and Careers. We're so very thankful for those of you that are listening in on a regular basis and providing content or conversation and comments back to us. I want to invite you, if you're over on YouTube, make sure you go hit the subscribe button so you can stay connected to us. We'd love to have you tuned in with us. Jessica's website, let me put it up here really fast for everybody so y'all can go and check her out. There's her website, jessicacanty.com. And Jessica, is there a specific process for the interviewing piece, or how do they connect?
Well, we'll do an initial consultation so I can do a career assessment as to what support you'll need. So we'll just have a little 15, 20-minute conversation. I'll ask you some questions. You'll ask me some questions, and then we'll decide how best to work with each other. There we go.
That's how you can get a hold of me right there on that website right there. And we'd love to have you staying connected with us with Callings and Careers. Again, our goal is to help you discover your calling and develop in your career. And these are Christ-centered career coaching conversations where you don't have to turn either one of those things off. You can have them both on at the same time and thrive in all of these areas. So that's Jessica Canty. I'm Christopher Harris. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. We'll see y'all the next time.